Personal sacrifice is a huge, huge part of scaling and exiting any business, and one that I don't think a lot of people understand. There has to be a level of emotional readiness to let go of something that you have built from a passion, scaling it strategically, and then using that experience to empower yourself and empower others. I don't think people understand how emotionally ready you have to be to let go of something that you love. My exit was not what I expected because karma didn't survive. And that was a really difficult thing for me to sit back and watch throughout that year.
She just sold her company. She sat in a room full of men negotiating the biggest deal of her lifetime. Wait, she sold for how much? I can't even believe she managed to get double her valuation. Let's keep this just between us.
Good evening, my Exit Whisperer listeners. It's me, Carrie Kerpen, and I'm coming at you in the evening, hours after recording my podcast with Ashley Deland. Okay, let me just tell you something about this podcast. We had every technical difficulty under the sun. Okay, every time she spoke, on my side, I was frozen. Every time I spoke on her side, she was frozen. And yet somehow we were able to communicate so beautifully. And I think it's because we're cosmically connected. I'm obsessed with Ashley's story. Ashley, I mean, she's like built businesses and done all kinds of things outside of this one particular period of her life. It's also interesting, but in this one span, she opened a yoga studio, a juice bar, and then finally a vegan restaurant, which she sold. What I find so interesting about Ashley is like her real deal perspective about burnout and about what happens when you sort of chase trends. Okay. And that's what she did for a while. And now you're going to hear all about what she's doing now and the process and the toll that that took on her. I can't wait for you to listen to her. I can't wait for you to meet her. And you tell me if you can tell them about the technical difficulties, you let me know. It was a wild one. Here's Ashley. Ashley, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Carrie.
You're like, I mean, I know I talked about this a little bit in your intro, but when you meet someone and you're just like, this is like a soul sister. This is like a person I need to know for my life. That is how I felt when I met you.
We had maybe a 5-minute encounter.
Yep. Not even.
Encounter.
It was not even. I went for our listeners, I went to the Maison Summit, which is a fantastic summit and a great organization. And it's not an inexpensive summit. Like it was definitely for me, it was an investment, and I became overwhelmed with work and I had to step out. So I spent all this money. I was there for 5 minutes, but it was so worth it because I met you. Honestly. Yes. And that's what's amazing. Like it gives you those connections that are just instant and really deep. And I know you do a lot of work with them too. So it's wonderful that I got to meet you there.
I mean, meeting women like you is the reason I get into those rooms. So
awesome.
How beautiful is
Awesome. Well, I want to talk to you. What's so interesting about you, when I look at your bio, when I read your story, so much of it is about the impact that you've had on other people's businesses. You have really grown businesses, specifically, a lot of female founded businesses, a lot of great work that you've done. But you also had your own business that you were able to take through a sale. And I want to talk a little bit about your career journey, how you got started, and then how you came to karma. Let's talk about it.
I love that. Okay. So I went to school for business, graduated with a marketing degree, and went on the more traditional path in terms of like, okay, I'm going to go into corporate and work for somebody and be this big marketing girl. I ended up graduating and getting an internship at a place that is very, very similar to like MTV in America. It's called like Much Music, and it was Idea City. And it was for a media guru here in Canada that I felt so honored to be in this position. And I was the director of events and marketing for this media guru for about 2.5 years. And then I realized one day that corporate life was just not for me. It was too much of micromanagement, sleeping with the phone underneath my pillow. And I just knew that I was meant for so much more. So I ended up leaving the position. And at that point in time, I was taking my education, my corporate experience, and understanding how I could incorporate a little bit more freedom in my life, removing all glass ceilings, but also step into a little bit more of a creative flow.
Right.
So I started analyzing a lot of trends. And at the time, it was like hot yoga was this big, beautiful trend. So I ended up opening up my first yoga studio called Floga, and it was really successful. We opened to another location, and then from there, I opened up cold press organic juice line, again, trend setting. And then the next really big trend that I saw was vegan restaurants. And I thought, okay, here we go. So I opened Karma in April of 2016, and I put my blood, sweat, and tears into this phenomenal restaurant that really served an unserved niche, I should say, because it was the first vegan, soy-free restaurant in all of Canada. I just saw a very clear gap in the market. So I opened this bricks and mortar in a geographical location that had more disposable income.
Okay.
In my perfect ICA. And I just worked and worked and worked 15, 20 hours. My gosh, almost a day. It was insane how much work this restaurant took. I ended up building it from the ground up, scaling it, and then exiting it in about March 2017.
Okay, I have so many questions. So first of all, we are definitely soul sisters. I love the name Floga. And I love that you decided that you wanted to sort of take control and like leave corporate and start some of these things. The first businesses that you opened, did you start them and close them? Did they not take off? What happened with the beginning ones before you went into Karma? Because I think it's really important that we look at the whole journey. So tell me, before the blood, sweat, and tears of the 18-hour days and the sale and the whole thing, tell me about the first two. Did they work out? Did they not work out? Where were they?
I agree. And to be honest, I didn't have the guidance and the knowledge to understand that I could scale and exit at the time. I just didn't know. And I wish, if there was one thing I could have redone with all three of them, I wish I would have brought on, like a mentor or an advisor all the way at the beginning for them to say, like, you can scale and exit this, because we had the second locations, and I ended up hiring a whole team to run it. All the numbers started falling because people really just wanted me. And then I was like, okay, well, I can't be part of a business where I'm always face forward.
Right.
So then I took the juicing company and I was like, okay, I'm behind the scenes. But I ended up just kind of dissipating that as well. So when it came to opening up the vegan restaurant, I was like, I am intentionally scaling to exit this, no doubt. So I just didn't know, to be honest.
And did you fund them yourself? Like, how did you get that you did it yourself?
Every single business to date, I have funded without any debt.
Okay. So which is, a lot of women do not go to raise, either because they can't or they don't want to, or it's whatever their relationship with debt is. I'm extremely interested and impressed at I tried this, it didn't work. I'm trying this, it's too much of my time, and now I'm going here. What do you think? Did you have moments where you were like, no, I'm throwing in the towel, like, I'm not going for this by the time you got to the third? Or were you like, just go? And how did you talk yourself up to keep going?
I knew that I did not want to own and operate a yoga studio for the rest of my life, and the same with the juice, because when you're trend setting like that, you understand there's a peak and then a decline. So I was able to enter at the peak, understand the decline, and then just kind of move on to the next idea. And the Enneagram 3, the Aries in me is always like, what's next? Like, here we go,
I'm married to an Enneagram 3. I get it. I mean, say no more. I hope my listeners go look up what that is. I think I need to put it in the show notes, because that's really all you need to know. She's driven for success. She goes for the trends. when the trends are done, she's like, peace out, bye. And then vegan. So the stick-to-itiveness of the vegan restaurant, what led to that? Was it the decision that you were going to build to sell and exit, and you thought that had the stickiness to do it?
That, and also I was building this restaurant selfishly to serve myself because I knew that my ICA was me.
Yes.
And I had so many dietary restrictions. I was like milking almonds before it was a thing. So my allergies were just, so all of the recipes and all of the food, it wasn't difficult for me to really sit into that creativity with our chef and to produce all of these phenomenal, some award-winning dishes, because intentionally it was such a clear gap in the market for me to have a vegan restaurant that was also soy free, which if anybody is in that world, they understand how detrimental soy is for women.
Yes.
But it was so intentional to scale and exit with the restaurant because I knew I was on to something. Like even opening day, we had like 20,000 in sales, and I was like, okay, so
this is
this is something. It's a very clear line for me. The community, everybody's reaction and response was, this is so needed. I'm so glad that you're here. I'm also like a really big communicator and a connector, and I adore community. So I just knew that I was on to something, but I also knew that for anybody who owns restaurants out there, they're going to nod their head. Owning a restaurant is a beast. It is way more difficult for me personally than it was to, own a yoga studio or organic cold pressed juice line, or to date anything else. Actually, the restaurant has been incredibly difficult because the hours are almost 24/7. Like we had staff coming in as early as sometimes 4:30 a.m. to quite literally milk the almonds. Like almost a 24-hour, we were closed for 2 hours a day. It was crazy. It's a beast. I knew about 6 months in that I had to work a little bit faster to exit.
So you go, now it's like a 24-hour a day business or 22-hour a day business. What steps did you take to get it towards sale?
The preliminary step that I took was I had to systemize all of operations because it was almost on a nonstop basis. And then after we systemized operations, it was so much about developing a really, really strong team and then combining those two so that the restaurant was operating whether I was there or not.
Right.
And I was able to step out of the manager or the chef role or, any of the other roles within those four walls. I was able to tap into community. I was able to build reputation. I just had to stop working within my business and start working outside of it to bring in the people, to bring in the sales, to bring in the numbers, and then to put everything in this beautiful little package that's ready to sail.
And so how did you start that process? So you're like, okay, I know what I need to do. I'm going to work on the business and in the business. I'm going to operationalize it. I'm going to focus on all of this. I'm going to package it up. Now it's time to sell. Where do you go? What do you do? How do you make that happen?
I was extremely lucky with my sale and my exit because I am a natural, again, community builder. So I just started leaning into my network. I went to other predominant restaurant owners, especially women owned within the GTA area. I live in Toronto, Canada, started talking to them and having just really organic conversations about whether they knew of anybody who wanted to acquire a restaurant. And it again, hands of favor on this one, because it didn't take long for me to lean into my network and to just start to strategically line up a few showings, people coming in. I was able to sell the restaurant, I think 1, 2, 3, within, I think 4 people coming in to see it. It was a very attractive package. So they were like, yeah, great. This is exactly what I want. Here's the cost. Here's the terms, the deliverables I need for you. And that was it. So it was a really fortunate exit.
And this was a chapter of your life where you were starting these essentially Main Street businesses, right? You start the yoga studio, you start all of these businesses that are have a storefront. And now all of a sudden you sell the restaurant and it's over. How do you know what the next chapter is? And did you know when you were selling already what you wanted to do next?
I wanted to sleep for a really long time. I was so burnt out.
Yeah.
I and transparently, like, I do definitely wanna speak from a place of vulnerability because I never wanna be that woman that was like,
Yes.
"Oh, life was
Yeah.
perfect," and I took a year off afterwards because I got into a position where I was just so tired, so burnt out, and, I really didn't know what to do next, but I kept getting little drops from the universe. A lot of women coming to say, like, "I see what you've just done in, with the studios and with the juice and with the restaurant. Like, can you do that for my business?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." And I didn't really, it was more like conversations. And then as I started doing it more, I was like, "Oh, advisory. This is exactly what I'm supposed to do." But it took me a really long time because I wasn't open to what that next stage was in my life. I just had to recoup. And I think it's really important to say that personal sacrifice is a
Yep.
huge, huge part of scaling and exiting any business, and one that I don't think a lot of people understand.
That's right.
And there has to be a level of emotional readiness to let go of something that you have built from a passion, scaling it strategically, and then using that experience to empower yourself and empower others. I don't think people understand how emotionally ready you have to be to let go of something that you love and not always see it go to fruition. My exit was not what I expected because karma didn't survive. And that was a really difficult thing for me to sit back and watch throughout that year, because it actually put a lot of doubt in my mind that I didn't build something for longevity and sustainability, but then also understanding that leadership is everything in a bricks and mortar, in a digital, in any kind of business, because you can give them a pretty package with a bow on top, but if they're not ready to receive it or to execute it or to lead that business, you have to sit back and watch it burn. And that was what was going not move. That's what was happening that year to follow. So it was me not ready to take on something else and also just watching something that you love kind of burn down to the ground, which, you know, it's part of the risk of scaling and exiting as well.
Okay, Ashley, you said something that was really important that I need to revisit and listening. By the way, for my listeners, I have no idea if my audio engineer will be able to clean this up. I'm hoping he will. Otherwise, I'm going to re-record it because the gems that Ashley is dropping are so amazing. And like I'm listening to her and I can't even barely respond. So I'm just alerting you to this so you know the behind the scenes of what the heck goes on with some of these interviews. So, Ashley, you talked about taking the year off after selling. And two things happened. One, you needed to find and discover what you wanted to do. And second was you needed to learn to let go of the control of the business that you poured your heart and soul into as it changed post sale. Talk to me about what that experience is like and how a business owner can prepare. Like when you're advising a business owner and they're selling their business, how can they prepare for that sort of drastic change of something you've put your life's work into to then no longer being yours and you have to watch whatever happens.
Yeah, ultimately, you have to understand that you can control the narrative up to a certain point, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
was karma was, ultimately, this isn't a story about a restaurant. It's about building something from a core passion, from a clear gap in the market, scaling it strategically, and then now using this experience to empower others. That's what the story is about. But what you have to understand is that everybody has this beautiful image of what scaling and exiting looks like and all this revenue drop that you're going to have. But the reality is, again, you can only control the narrative up until you give that box with the bow into somebody else's hands. And it is now their prerogative of what they would like to do with that business, with that box, with that brand. And if they decide to take a match and light it and burn the whole thing up, you have to sit back and be okay with it because it is no longer in your control. And that is exactly the experience that I had. And it has uncovered so many, I would say, limiting beliefs and fears and doubts. And they were brought to the surface for me. And it took me a while to realize that it actually had nothing to do with me, that everything was happening for a reason and that it was meant to be delivered into somebody else's hands, but it was also up to them what they wanted to do with it. So that's how I would advise, and how I have advised a lot of the scale to exits with my own clients, is that be prepared again, that there's an emotional readiness to this, that whatever is going to happen is going to happen and you have zero control over it. It's really just such a bittersweet process of letting go of something that you love and having no control over what happens after that, really.
So I guess my question on that, Ashley, is like when so now you advise businesses and you're an author and there's all of this great stuff that we're going to talk about. If you were looking back and you had to do it again and you're advising businesses, should all businesses plan an exit, or is it enough just to close it and say, this is a great chapter and I'm done? Like where does your thinking lie in this space?
I now only start businesses that I know that I can scale and exit because I am at a certain point in my own career. And I think this is such a personal decision as well. Not everything has to have a bow and a box around it.
Right.
Sometimes it's just right for that. And I'll speak
Right.
to women. It's just right for that woman to say, I'm going to put this on hold, or I'm going to stop in general because it's just not serving my soul or my
Yes.
purpose or my vision anymore. There really is this glamour around exiting, but if you don't strategically set up your business almost from the very beginning, from that preliminary vision of it, then it will take you a very, very long time to get to the point of it being attractive enough to exit. And sometimes people don't have that need, that want, that patience
Yep.
to do so. And also, that's also okay. I would say if I could do all three of them over again, I did them all without a mentor, without any advisory, without any guidance or support. And that is what I would have changed. I would have brought somebody on to help me structure the businesses to exit them for greater impact. Because I just think that I could have, I'm not a coulda would have, but
Yeah.
I could have done something with the yoga studios and the juice and even created a little bit more maximum impact for the exiting of the restaurant. But um, you know, you
Yeah,
live
but
and you learn, and now the impact.
that's part of why you give back now and why you do what you do and why your newest book, Unreserved, is coming out. Talk to me about the book and where did that come from and the work that you do. Give me like where is Ashley today?
Yes. So, unreserved kind of, I'm a very big advocate these days, as you know, for leading through transparency and vulnerability, because I feel like there's a lot of armor that sometimes we wear and we operate from as entrepreneurs in terms of having to speak a certain way and present yourself in a certain way. And my mission this past year and a half has been to completely break down those barriers and just lead in vulnerability and authenticity. And that came about from starting my podcast, She Wears the Pants. And my first episode was the story of Ashley. And I dived really deep into telling my own actual story about being brought up in a religious cult and some other bomb drops. And then from there, I was just bombs. And then from there, I was getting just hundreds and hundreds of messages from women around the world, almost in a state of gratefulness for giving them permission to step into their vulnerabilities and their turning their traumas into triumphs. And I just thought, this is so needed, that we are giving women a narrative of stepping into the power of vulnerability. So I decided to create and co-publish Unreserved, which is a book with 24 women's stories from around the world who then step into their vulnerability, their power. Some is scaled and exit. And it just launched actually May 1st. So it's a book that has started a movement, and this Summit is happening May 21st, and then we have the book launch happening the 22nd. So all beautiful things have happened when I've stepped into vulnerability, just a movement. And I'm just so excited to not be a published author, but more so to co-collaborate with these powerful women in this book.
So amazing. Okay, I'm going to officially commit to putting this out before the 21st, before your summit. So tell us about the summit, and if people want to come, where should they go? How can I want to help get people? People need to support Ashley because she's just, I'm telling you, the minute you meet her, you see the light and the energy and the joy and the vulnerability, the realness. So let everyone tell us about the summit.
Babe. I just, gosh, all that love is reciprocated right back to you, for the record. The Unreserved Summit is happening May 21st in Burlington, Ontario, Canada. And I'm bringing 6 really powerful speakers who also happen to be authors in Unreserved to grace the stage, where we learn about like innovation through AI technology and angel investing, and talking about things that are not normally communicated, especially here in Canada. So that is from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. May 21st. And then we have the Unreserved book launch party happening May 22nd. And that is just a moment to celebrate all these women in the book. It is one thing to sit there and write your chapter and step into that deep vulnerability. It's another thing to then expose it to the world. So we are all going through this journey together, and these women need a spotlight on them for everything that they have just gone through in these past 9 months to get this book into the market.
Amazing. Well, Ashley, thank you so much for coming on the show. I hope our technical difficulties look effortless, but for those of you who don't know, Ashley and I, we just survived like a trauma together. We just survived a traumatic podcast interview, and we did it with grace and ease and vulnerability together. And I'm just thrilled to have you on the show. Thank you, my darling.
Oh, my pleasure, my love. My pleasure.